You could definitely go more.
Okay.
But I was trying to get out of the habit of saying, is it important to always take it to as far as it can go, like therapeutically? Maybe because you're not going as far, it's actually releasing.
And then you can also make it more intense by just engaging your hamstring, the practitioner's hamstring.
Right.
So that creates more, stabilizes the pelvis even more.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome.
And then as it releases, you can get a lot more stretch.
Wow.
Does anybody want to try that on his right leg?
I do it a little different, but I can do it.
Oh, I'm curious.
So I'm not showing my butt.
You know what it's on his right side?
I do it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Sorry.
It's quite alright.
Oh, see, there's a pin. Very nice.
And I'm lifting it.
Yeah, no, I see that. I totally see what you're doing. Because like, it looks like you're having intention of the femoral head going away from the pelvis.
So,
And probably, I mean, especially for Apollonia's size, this would probably work better for her than what you know.
so.
Right, because the left part could be a little
Yeah.
strenuous.
So and then I can go a little back and out. This.
Bingo.
Nice.
And what I'm doing actually, I'm giving my leg a little lift.
Which you're
Down and out, right?
you're kind of pulling up.
It's a nice variation.
Looks beautiful.
And actually, with my right hand, I'm going in his quadriceps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Now you get the release. So it's, there you go.
That was awesome.
You're done.
You're done.
I'm gonna stay here for a few days.
Anyone else? Anything upper body related? Because I've got some
Upper body?
upper body.
I'll do. You want to do it?
You want to do it?
You go
Yeah,
ahead. Oh, we got that on camera. That would be great.
I think you did get it on camera.
Yes.
You did.
So, yeah, I think that the problem is, to answer your question from another angle, is that there's a lot of information out there, but part of that information is what's the easy information. And easy information is all these images of these fake bodies.
Yeah, well,
Like, overwhelming.
pictures sell, right?
Yeah, pictures sell, and they're all over the internet or the magazines and wherever you go, you know, the hot body. And then you see things like the CrossFit, I think you mentioned that earlier, and things like that. And you see people doing these extreme workouts.
Right.
And you think that that's the only way to get to your quote-unquote ideal self. But it's about the whole picture, right?
Well, it's also, it's very interesting with the extreme workout thing because, you know, as the kind of training that I received when I was a martial artist in my 20s is not something that I would think about doing as I got older, right? In the first place. And also, there's kind of like a season for training for different things. And then there's reasons, right? If you're a professional dancer, a professional athlete, a professional anything, it's rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the demands on you are significantly different than somebody who
Works in office.
works in an office or even, let's say, a construction worker,
Mm-hmm.
right? The last thing you need to do as a construction worker is to go and do that type of rigorous exercise. You may need more conservative things because of your profession.
Bodies, yeah.
More stretching,
Mhm.
more body centering, more alignment
Massage.
techniques, massage therapy, things that kind of complement the fact that you are in your profession probably doing way too much anyway, right? You don't have a choice. You're carrying sheetrock, you're doing this, whether you want to or not, you're getting a workout, right? And now we have places that are selling you hitting a tire with a sledgehammer, you know, that you're doing all these kinds of things that day workers are trying to get out of,
Mhm.
right? The guys waiting for you at Home Depot are doing that kind of stuff. They're not doing that because they want to get slim. they're doing it because they don't have any choice. They would think you were crazy if you were saying that you're going to pay somebody to go and do those kinds of things. So it's a really weird thing.
And then also, I mean, when I was professionally dancing, I was dancing every day.
Yeah.
So there's a certain fitness that I had when I did it every day, and it's not. I still dance, but I don't do it that way.
Sure.
So you see these people doing a day of intensive kill your body, but it's not like they're an athlete that does all this preparation to get there.
Right.
They're just slamming their bodies to get in to look like the athlete, but they're not doing the process that most athletes do.
Well said.
You know.
And they're not accruing the skill sets either. Because after all that training, right, the rigorousness we went through was to actually attain a skill set. We weren't just doing it just to look a certain way. We were doing it because we wanted to be able to do something at a higher level.
Right.
And this is what's totally missing, I see. It's like, okay, well, you've trained like that, but you can't do anything.
Yeah, just find that.
Like, what is your skill that you've developed that you put all this time and energy into? And we have skills that translate for the rest of our lives. They're not going to go anyplace. They may diminish in some form, but you can always tell a dancer. I don't care if you danced at 6. You can always tell that they have that body awareness in there. And so, I part of why I do what I do with the information that we put out is to inform people that a lot of times they think they're doing too much, or they're not doing enough of the right things. And true fitness and true wellness has a lot to do with an individual need rather than what the group has to do. Because your need for fitness, for what you do to get through your day, right? Have something left over after the day is over with, and be able to do what you like to do when you have your free time is totally different than say maybe my need or her need or someone else's need. So shouldn't the activities that you focus on to take care of yourself be different than what somebody else is doing? And then your age, doesn't that, factor in as to how old you are? And sometimes we have injuries, right? If you've been doing stuff, you've been here any time, you have maybe limitations. Shouldn't that factor in as well? And then I don't want to create a limitation either by doing something too much. So I wear out my knee, I wear out my hip. It's not the same, when you have a replacement is what.
I have a client, his main passion is he loves golf. But he has this weird goal of he wants to have muscles.
Okay.
So he's been doing
visible muscles.
Heavy duty weightlifting. And every time he comes to a session with me, we're undoing what that trainer does. Finally, he stopped, and because he was getting too much injuries, and it wasn't giving him the mobility to do what he loves. In many ways, that heavy training, it closed the way he trained. If it was with you, it would be a whole different story. That it was closing his joints, and that was like the last thing he needed to do.
I just first sorry also to come back to you. I think what can be a little more that to give our clients to walk, just walking, and that's actually with all what happened when I finish my sessions. Sometimes I just want to walk.
Okay.
I don't like to right away to take the subway. I just want to walk a couple of blocks before I take the subway. And I have a client in another place, and she is over 80, but she looks good, and she said she's walking a lot.
Great.
And that's amazing for me.
Well, that's one thing like with my mom, she walks. I mean, she lives in a retirement community. A lot of those people are in the wheelchairs and things like that, and we take that stuff for granted at 20s, 30s, 40s.
Right, that you will have an issue walking, whereas a lot of us first of all, I've been injured doing my activities, and I've been times when I couldn't walk, canes or whatever you're doing, impact-based activities. Anybody who's playing any kind of sports, I'm sure at one point has had a point where you couldn't even walk. And believe me, when I get up and I can do walking with no pain or doing things like that, I appreciate it. And certainly the elders, you always hear about them falling or have a fear of falling, which is a lack of mobility, which translates to a lack of autonomous, ability in their lives. That means they can't do for themselves anymore. They have to have somebody else do, because you can't come and go as you want to. And I think that the emphasis on this brutal kinds of training, I know that the emphasis on these brutal kinds of training shortens your lifespan. It doesn't increase it. It shortens it in many ways. It shortens, it damages the joints.
The quality of life.
It damages the quality of life. It damages your ability to do, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? You're thinking, I'm going to do these things so I can be fit, but you end up actually shortening your ability to do things over the long run. Because you're not going to cash in the body that you had in your 20s for another body in your 40s, for another body in your 60s. You're living with what you did in the 20s. You're living what you did in the 30s.
Yeah.
And aren't you supposed to learn too? Because from my understanding, one of the reasons why we used to do a lot of repetition in basic kinds of training, dance, martial arts, and other things like that, is because you don't understand it yet. And so the purpose of the repetition isn't so much the conditioning as it is to understanding the technique. Mm-hmm. And once you have the technique down, you don't need to do 1,000 of it because you have the technique. Before you couldn't do it. So the repetition actually was a way of teaching and learning it versus the conditioning aspect.
Right.
And I'm not talking about endurance activities like cardiovascular, running, swimming, long periods of time, because even that has an element of you don't want to swim incorrectly, running correctly, or cycling correctly for any length of time either, because what you're doing is you're reinforcing a bad habit and you're breaking it down. It's like if I was just to do this 1,000,000 times, eventually I'd look down and I wouldn't have, the bone would be sticking out from the friction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that people should look more at what they need and try to figure out what will complement it really for the long term, and then also maybe start to dissect more the things that they're being told and be a little bit more inquisitive. Use the tools that we have. You're standing there with your phone, person's telling you something, you have all these accesses that you can literally, correlate what they say with the truth.
And I think also not because they should do that to look that way, but they should enjoy what they like to do.
Yes. So as always, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I'm hoping that, we got a little information out that will help people. And thank you so much for having us in the studio, and thank you guys for partaking, because I know you're very busy, and I think we're going to go for a walk now.
Yes,